Hey everyone, I'm Nate George. I'm going to go over a site I built a couple of years ago, and this is jobdata.space. So this is a site I built as a job application for a dice.com remote data scientist position. As you can imagine, there were probably thousands of applicants for the job, so I didn't get it. And I was also a little bit late applying, which probably didn't help. Nevertheless, I spent a couple weeks building this project from scratch, and it entails quite a few things. So we'll take a look first at the overall finished product. So this is the landing page. It rotates through these different skills and coding languages in this wheel bar in the middle of the page. And then when we click on go on, try it out, it gives us different options for some common search terms. So I was most interested in data science, so that was the first thing I was looking at. And this is a collection of data from job postings on dice.com, which have data science in the title, or also I think maybe in the description. So these are some features that dice.com still doesn't have. So things like looking at what the top skills are for a certain job or a certain search term. So for searching for data science, this is only job postings from the last week or two, but we can see Python is in 60% of the jobs out there on dice.com with data science in the title. SQL is the next top one, machine learning is next, and then R is after that. And then all these other skills follow after that. I've also got a histogram with kernel density estimate of the salaries for the jobs that are posted. So for data science, the average salary is 140K, ranging anywhere from about 80 to 200K. And a lot of these jobs are in New York, so that kind of explains why the salaries are so high. Some of them are also in San Francisco. So some other things I wanted to look at was what are the top locations for these jobs. And so we can see the top couple locations are San Francisco and New York City. And then a bunch of other California cities are up there. So in terms of states, we've got over a quarter of the positions for data science on dice.com are in California. About 10% are in New York. Actually, quite a few are in Texas right now, and then everything else kind of follows after that. So if, for example, I was looking for a job a couple years ago in Colorado, and so that one is way down here at maybe 1% of the job postings are in Colorado, so makes it kind of tough. Another thing I did was, once we have all these scraped job postings from Dice, we can filter them by location. So I enter a location in there, press enter, it adds my location as a filter. You can also filter by salary range, so if there's some sort of minimum salary you're looking for, you can put that here. Just defaults from 0 to a million. And then we hit filter jobs, and currently on Dice there's only one job that is listed in Colorado. And actually it's kind of even old, it's 3 weeks ago. But as long as these postings are still live on Dice, they're still available via the search on this app that I made. Another thing that I did with this, so scraping all these jobs, I found out that most of them don't have a salary listed. They'll say negotiable, depends on experience, blah blah blah. Just anything for them to evade actually putting out a number for you. So what I did is used the postings that actually had a salary and threw that into a gradient boosted model, so using XGBoost, and I used that to predict salaries for job postings where there is no salary. So in this case, it's predicting 120K. So that's based on words in the title, I think, the location, the skills, and what type of position it is, full-time, contract, and so on. So anyway, that's kind of the app in a nutshell there. Just had some other promotional information at the bottom as well, which is where this about takes you, the about link. So you can also look for other things. Analyst is maybe a more entry-level job for a data scientist. So I was also looking at what that one shows us. So once it finishes loading up here in the upper right, it's running on kind of a cheap AWS server, M3X large, which is not very powerful, doesn't have a lot of RAM, so it's kind of slow to actually load the page, especially when the database gets large, which I'll get to in a minute. But anyway, so for analysts, people put skills. So this is the actual list of skills people put in their job posting. So they put analyst as a skill most of the time in these listings. Again, New York City is where most of the postings are for this one, but California is still the top state. The other thing I forgot is you can actually filter by these skills. So this is a bokeh plot, so it's an interactive JavaScript plot that you write through code through Python and then embed into the HTML. So you can actually click on the different skills and highlight them. So in this case I've got, let's get rid of analyst because that's not very useful. So let's do SQL, maybe Excel, and Python. So with those three skills, we can, so you can see it added them down here to our filter, and we can filter the jobs based on those skills. And since Python's not listed in very many listings, we actually only came up with one posting for this, and takes us to the posting. So anyway, that was an interesting thing, I think, to be able to interactively click on these bars for the different skills that you want to select and then filter jobs based on that, as well as also filter jobs based on location and, if you choose, salary. So depending on how you filter them, you might not get any results. Alright, so I wrote quite a lot of code to do this. The first step was actually scraping the job postings. So in this collectapi.py file, there's a lot of code written in here to scrape the jobs from dice.com and then parse them, clean them, and then eventually store them in a MongoDB database. So so looking at these MongoDB entries, so I've stored each job, or each search term is its own collection in this database. So if we look at the data science posting, we can see it's got everything in there, and I even scraped the description because I thought maybe eventually doing some text analytics could be interesting there. So it's really got everything: location, skills, title, travel. I cleaned the skills because sometimes they, well, it just helps to clean them to kind of standardize them so that they can be grouped better, and all the other information here as well. And then every time I scrape new jobs, I also run that machine learning algorithm, the XGBoost, to predict the salary and then store that in the database as well. So that's the first step, scraping the jobs from Dice. They used to have an API, but now they got rid of it, so I had to just kind of redo a few things. The API used to return data as a JSON object, so you'd get each one of these things as an entry in the JSON. So I basically just rewrote the scraping algorithm to do the same thing, just grab this information from the web page and put it in the JSON object. This file, collectapi, also has all the plotting in here. So it has things like plotting these top skills. So we basically give it a search term and some other options. There's a little bit of playing with getting the scale factor right so it doesn't overlap with other plots. And then it's using bokeh. So with bokeh, we need to actually write some JavaScript code And so this is within the Python code, but it's JavaScript code, and this is how those plots are interactive. So this is what enables us to be able to click on these things, and then also to pass that data of where we clicked back to the web page and have it actually help us filter our jobs. Probably that salary filter is screwing it up. Alright, so anyway, all the plotting is in here with Bokeh. It uses a little bit older version of Bokeh. There's a function and some of the things got changed around since I wrote this. So in order to actually make this work, you have to use an older version of Bokeh, which I need to upgrade sometime. Alright, so that's kind of scraping and plotting. Once I had the scraping code written, I was originally using a cron tab to scrape it periodically, but now it is actually using a Python file. So I'm not sure if this is the latest, actually. Right, so I wrote it as a loop that just continually runs. So it just keeps running. If it hasn't scraped in the past 24 hours, then it scrapes all the data, and then it sleeps for an hour at a time until it hasn't scraped for an hour, or hasn't scraped for a day. So that's how the scraping works currently, and I've still got it running just to collect the data because it's interesting. I also have something here which I've used in multiple projects where it can actually send an email and a text message if these functions are called. So the reason I would send myself email alerts for this is if somebody searches for a new search term. So, whoops, well, that's fine. So if someone searches for a search term that's not in my list of search terms, this thing pops up, tells us it's added to the request list, and then check back in a little bit. So that goes to my email. And it shows up here and just tells me in the subject I've got a new search term requested, so I know if someone's requested this new search term, and I can just manually filter and add them. So that was another little feature I added. The last few things in the code here, there's the machine learning .py file, and this is what's used to predict salaries. So you can see in this predict salary function where so first we get all the jobs from the database, and then I create all the features, and finally actually fit the XGBoost model, and then use that to make predictions. So this file is not that huge, it's only a few hundred lines, and that's what I used to predict the salaries. The app itself is being served via a Flask application. So that's this app.py file, and that's got the different, I've only got a couple pages. There's just the home page, and then a few different pages where it's sending requests to get information. It's also storing a little bit about the users who visit the site. So it saves those as well in the MongoDB, I think. So perhaps that's not actually being, I thought that was being stored in the database. Maybe not. I'm not seeing it in here. Anyway, the idea, which I guess I didn't quite complete, was to save all the visits to the website in MongoDB as well. There's also quite a bit of JavaScript I wrote to get this site up and running. So that's mostly in this app.js file. So a lot of these things were also done in JavaScript. and then a little bit of HTML using a Bootstrap template. So overall, I think this may have taken about a couple weeks to do a few years ago when I built it. Obviously, if I did it now, it'd be a little bit faster and I'd write the code better and more cleanly. But that's it for the tour of jobdata.space. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.